Bill Malugin had less than a minute and a half to deliver Fox News' evening update, and into those 85 seconds, he packed a war, a blockade, a Chinese espionage case, a school shooting averted, a 70-vehicle pileup, a chunk of ice falling from the sky, and a reminder to file your taxes. It's easy to mock the format. But the newscast also contained two factual claims that deserve to be examined carefully because together they tell the story of where this war actually stands tonight, not where the administration says it stands.
Good evening, I'm Bill Malugin, and this is your Fox News report. The war with Iran is, quote, very close to over. That's what President Trump told Fox Business. The U.S. blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz continues. No ships have passed during the first 48 hours. The Pentagon now reporting nearly 400 U.S. service members have been injured since the start of Operation Epic Fury. A Chinese researcher is sentenced to 4 months in prison after being busted for smuggling E. coli into the U.S. Prosecutors say he received a package falsely labeled as women's underwear from a Chinese science company back in 2024. He pled guilty and will be deported after his sentence. An Oklahoma high school principal risks his life to stop a gunman. Video shows a former student armed and walking into the school before trying to open fire, but that attack was foiled when Kirk Moore tackled him. Moore was shot, but is expected to be okay. A massive crash on a Colorado highway, leaving 19 people injured. Authorities say about 70 vehicles were involved amidst snowy conditions Tuesday. One person suffered serious injuries. And a large chunk of ice falling from the sky and crashing into a California house. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. The homeowner says ice could be from a plane passing overhead in Whittier. The FAA now investigating. And remember, it's tax day. If you still need to file, you have until midnight, or you can always request an extension. In Washington, I'm Bill Malugin. Have a great night.
The war is very close to over, Trump told Fox Business. Nearly 400 U.S. service members have been injured in it. Both statements cannot fully be true at the same time, and that contradiction is the story. President Trump, in his interview with Fox Business, said the war is very close to over. Here is what is true in that sentence. Second-round talks could resume this week. The U.S. and Iran are looking to negotiate before the 2-week ceasefire expires next week. Pakistan is again offering to host. Oil prices fell to around $95 per barrel by Tuesday evening. All three major stock indexes showed strong gains. Markets are pricing in resolution. Israel and Lebanon agreed to continue negotiations at a mutually agreed time after the State Department meeting. The Israeli ambassador said Lebanon made it very clear that they will no longer be occupied by Hezbollah. Here is what is also true. Iran rejected the U.S. proposal for a 20-year suspension of nuclear activity. Vance said talks stalled because Trump was holding out for a grand bargain instead of a small deal. Iran is using the ceasefire to remove debris blocking the entrances to its underground missile bases. Front-end loaders and dump trucks have been photographed by satellites clearing rubble from blocked tunnels. Half of Iran's missile launchers remained intact after a month of fighting. The fighting has killed at least 3,000 people in Iran, more than 2,000 in Lebanon, 23 in Israel, and more than a dozen in Gulf Arab states. 13 U.S. service members have also been killed. A war that has killed 5,000 plus people, that is operating under a ceasefire both sides have violated, that just saw its first direct negotiations fail, that is enforced by a naval blockade with 10,000 American troops on alert, where one side is digging its missiles back out of the rubble while the other reloads warships. That war is not very close to over. It is close to something. Whether that something is peace or renewed combat is unknowable tonight. Bill Malugin reported that the Pentagon now says nearly 400 U.S. service members have been injured since Operation Epic Fury began. This figure tracks with CENTCOM's disclosures over the past week. As of April 8th, Central Command told Military Times that 381 U.S. service members had been wounded over 40 days of Epic Fury. 344 of those had returned to duty. But here is what the Fox segment did not say, what no mainstream cable segment has said all day. Investigative reporting by the Intercept found the Pentagon's casualty numbers are systematically undercounted. The Defense Casualty Analysis System doesn't include non-hostile injuries. The figures exclude more than 200 sailors treated for smoke inhalation or lacerations during a March 12th fire aboard the USS Gerald R. They exclude a sailor injured aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. They exclude an Air Force officer who was bleeding rather profusely during the F-15E rescue operation. The Intercept's analysis found that nearly 750 U.S. troops have been wounded or killed in the Middle East since October 2023, more than 520 in the current Iran war alone. When injuries the Pentagon doesn't formally count are included, Iranian attacks caused $800 million in damage to U.S. bases within the first 2 weeks of the war. Bases in the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia have been rendered, in some cases, all but uninhabitable. Many U.S. service members have been relocated to hotels and office spaces, raising concerns about using civilians as de facto shields. An Iranian attack on a hotel in Bahrain injured 2 Pentagon employees. The nearly 400 injured figure is the official count. The real number, including traumatic brain injuries that manifest later, smoke inhalation from ship fires, non-hostile incidents, and unacknowledged wounded, is almost certainly higher. How much higher, nobody outside the Pentagon knows, because the Pentagon isn't saying Malugan's other key claim. No ships have passed during the first 48 hours of the blockade. This is technically accurate but incomplete. CENTCOM said, during the first 24 hours, no ships made it past the U.S. blockade, and 6 merchant vessels complied with direction from U.S. forces to turn around to re-enter an Iranian port on the Gulf of Oman. What Malugan didn't say, ships are passing through the strait, just not from Iranian ports. Several Iran-linked vessels have passed through the strait. An additional tanker departed from an Iranian port before passing through the Strait of Hormuz on April 14th, according to marine traffic data, despite the claimed U.S. blockade. The Rich Starry, the U.S.-sanctioned Chinese tanker covered in this morning's coverage, passed through carrying UAE methanol. At least one Iran-linked vessel appears to have slipped through after departing an Iranian port. The blockade has teeth. It is also not airtight. Both things are true. The other stories in the newscast and why they matter, Malugan's 85 seconds also contained a Chinese researcher sentenced for smuggling E. coli into the U.S. in a package labeled as women's underwear. This is the kind of story that would normally be a minor FBI case. In the context of U.S.-China relations during an Iran war where China is reportedly preparing air defense shipments to Tehran, it becomes something else. A reminder that Chinese state-linked actors continue to operate inside the United States even as the two countries slide toward direct confrontation. An Oklahoma principal tackled a school shooter and was wounded doing it. Kirk Moore saved lives. He took a bullet doing it. The fact that this story gets 12 seconds at the end of a war coverage block is an indictment of how normalized American school shootings have become, and a reminder that while America fights abroad, the domestic violence continues uninterrupted. A 70-vehicle Colorado pileup, a chunk of ice from a plane crashing into a California home. Tax day. Life goes on. People file their returns. Snow falls. Planes drop things. The war is the lead, but it is not the only thing happening in America tonight. Across today's Fox News coverage, from Harris Faulkner's live blockade map at noon, through Brett Byers' Vance interview at 6 p.m., through the evening panel shows, through this late-night 85-second update, one pattern emerged. The more urgent the story, the less context it receives. Peter Ducey in the morning gave us serious reporting on the 20-year proposal. Jennifer Griffin in the evening gave us the carrier group rerouted around Africa. Brett Sadler explained the mine clearing. Vance acknowledged Iran moved in our direction. Waltz told us about the central banker. Then the evening news ran a 12-second headline, "War very close to over, 400 wounded," that contained more unresolved tension than any of the hour-long analytical segments. Because the war is not close to over. It is close to either a diplomatic breakthrough that papers over unresolved issues for a few years, or it is close to renewed combat that could pull China into direct confrontation with the United States. Nobody knows which tonight. Not the president, not the vice president, not the ambassador, not the general, not the analyst, not the reporter on the ground. The only people who know are whoever is making decisions in Tehran. wherever they are, however they're communicating. And the terrifying thing, the thing Peter Doocy reported days ago and nobody has forgotten, is that even the Iranian delegation in Islamabad couldn't make a deal because they had to go back to Tehran to find someone with authority. A war that kills thousands, fractures alliances, closes the world's most important waterway, and brings a blockade within a blockade to global shipping lanes, and neither side knows, at the end of day 47, who has the authority to stop it. That's not very close to over. That's the edge of something nobody should want to see. Nearly 400 U.S. service members have been injured. 13 have been killed. The Pentagon has released some names. Army Sergeant Benjamin Pennington, who died from injuries sustained at Prince Sultan Air Base. Marjoner Sorfleet Davies, who died while deployed to Kuwait but whose name remains missing from official casualty counts. They deserve to be named. They deserve to be remembered. They deserve more than 85 seconds between a smuggled E. coli case and a tax day reminder. If the war is very close to over, let's hope it ends before the 400 becomes 500, before the 13 becomes 20, before another American family gets the visit nobody wants. That's the only ending that matters. And tonight, we don't know if we're getting it.